My name's Jonathan Romney. It's a great pleasure to be here tonight introducing one of the extraordinary filmmakers of the 21st century. Maybe there was a slight overlap in the 20th, but 21st. He is someone who has been exploring time in cinema, and he's been unpicking some of the mythical figures of world culture, European culture in particular, from Don Quixote in Honor de Cavalleria to the Three Kings in Birdsong by way of Casanova, Louis XIV, and in one of his art pieces, The Three Pigs, the unholy trio of Goethe, Hitler, and Rainer Werner Fassbinder. His new film, Pacifiction, takes a decided left turn. It's still very much one of his films, but the style is something quite new, and if you stick around later tonight, you'll have a chance to see it. Before I introduce him, we're just going to have a couple of clips, and then we will welcome Albert Serra.
Ou s'ils simulent. Je me méfie de ces gens. Ils attendent quelque chose de plus.
Je ne vous connaissais pas peureux.
Je ne suis pas peureux. Je suis précautionneux.
C'est un lieu bien étrange pour abandonner son valet. C'est que madame doit avoir autant d'imagination que vous.
Il ne souhaite pas répondre pour l'instant.
Peut-être est-il vraiment sot.
Je ne le crois pas. Monsieur, que faites-vous?
J'ai entendu un bruit.
Regardez-le, n'ayez pas peur.
J'ai entendu un bruit.
Regardez-le, n'ayez pas peur.
Mike, por que não te explicas como escreves?
Como assim? O que faig és pensar, mirar les coses. I escric. El que faig és pensar. Ara fa 2 anys mirar les coses que vaig començar a escriure. I només tinc feta una oda. I escric. De tots els meus treballs, ara fa 2 anys, no tinc que vaig començar a escriure. I només tinc feta una oda. És l'únic acabat. De tots els meus treballs, veig que és alta, molt alta l'escala de la poesia. És l'únic acabat. I més amunt d'aquest primer claó, on sóc ara, no pujaré mai. És alta, molt alta l'escala de la poesia.
Thank you. Please welcome the equally well-dressed Albert Serra. Albert, welcome to the Ciné Lumière, and since we're here at the French Institute, let me ask you first of all, you've made these two films, Liberté and Story of My Death. One is in French, one is in Catalan, but you've made all these films about figures of French history, and you've made films in French. You've made The Death of Louis XIV with the legendary French actor Jean-Pierre Léaud, and your new film with Benoît Magimel is about a French High Commissioner in Polynesia. So what's your enduring fascination with France?
Well, there are separate things here. One thing is my enduring fascination for some literature and some authors and some tradition also linked to cinema, and you know the love they have for cinema and specifically for art house cinema, and you know also for certain film critics. Some of them were filmmakers at that time, but you know this idea that they started of the politics of authors, and you know to make us understand that cinema could be seen in a different way, that we could really change our visions, because we were not enough intelligent or we were not enough smart to recognize some points in every filmmaker that make cinema not only a popular art, but something much more sophisticated than that. And this was France who did it, and of course it was something very important for them. It came also for the love of the diversity, of the love, of course, after the Second World War, of their own cinema. So they created a tradition around serious cinema or serious understanding of images that it doesn't exist in any other place. This so this, how to say, intellectual approach to cinema, and also this was more personal thing. My approach, my love for some writers, and in this case more classical writers of France. And for example, The Death of Louis XIV is born because of my love for Saint-Simon. And then, I was a great reader of Proust and Stendhal, and mostly all my great not influence, but the pleasure of reading something, it was always linked to French authors. And I never studied French literature in my life. I never studied French language. So I learned it, and I know it quite well, but just, because of this love. So I think there was a combination of two elements, that at the level of intellectual, but at the level also of production, producing films and financing films, I realized gradually that it was like an adoption country, because they have the tools to produce this kind of films, and it's the most important country, and it's the only one who create a system that can really put a contrast or really face the oppression or pressure of American way of doing things. And they resist, and they did an alternative, and it worked until now, and it's it's a successful alternative.
Yeah, there's a moment in Pacifiction where the French High Commissioner is welcoming a visiting novelist, and he pays her what for him is the highest compliment. He says she's like an 18th century Enlightenment spirit, and an inheritor of the libertinage, the libertines of that period. So you made La Liberté about the libertines of that period, and Casanova, obviously. What is it about Europe in that period particularly?
I don't know, because it's something, fresh air of freedom in a very radical sense. And you are talking about this kind of cliché, but imagine the Marquis de Sade. No, it's much more radical than that, and there are a lot of figures that are still nowadays very important and fascinated. Pasolini, among others, or whoever, and it's extremely radical. So this kind of radicalism, it doesn't exist, and the consequence of that, that of course will lead to French Revolution, and of course will lead to Napoleon, and a little bit of conservative, slightly conservative change, but all the avant-gardes in the 20th century, at the beginning, surrealism, so there is a tradition of iconoclast or subversive thinking, subversive, and in the 18th century, where this is more clear, of course, compared with other countries. So I don't know. There is something really, really challenging and at the same time funny, to work with. Of course, it's important and relevant intellectually, but it's also funny to deal with. If you have to work with actors and you have to put it in a libertinage, context like here, I think, and if you do it in a very, of course, I have these sources, the origin of the films, but then I don't care a lot. Of course, I want to be respectful, and at the same time, the balance between being respectful and iconoclast. But essentially, what I do when I shoot the film and when I start really working in it, it's not to think about it a lot. Forget it a little bit, create, conditions where I will be able to have fun myself, first of all. Then some people around me, this is the closer people, and then we'll see if the other ones. But I think that it's a, very strange attitude to approach cinema, but it's very coherent with the freedom that digital gives you.
Yeah, but you do have a very unusual shooting style. I mean, you shoot masses and masses of material, and then you look for the film within it. I think for Pacifiction, how many hours did you have?
540, with 3 cameras.
Yeah.
So it was around 180, almost a little bit more of sound. It's not so much because we should, it's compared with the standards of nowadays, of course, for more academic approach to the making of a film, yes. But if you count it this way, 180, 25 days of shooting, it means that there is 6, 7, 8 hours per day of sound, per day of sound, yeah. So for me, because when I arrived to the set, in theory, we have already everything should be prepared, the light and everything, and it's just waiting for the actors, that are the lazy ones. So, okay, we are there just waiting, but everything else, it's, my unity, it's not a shot. I don't prepare shots. I do scenes. My unity of editing, the unity of thinking, the unity of conceptual approach to cinema, it's in a scene. It's not a shot. And for the reason I have 3 cameras, and I have 3 cameras in different places. And also the unity of a space, it's the 360 degrees around the actors. It's not that there is only one perspective. And it was very useful, this I realized since the very beginning, because of course they lose control of their own image. Because they never, and we only use zoom lenses, digital cameras, of course, zoom lenses. They don't know what the cameras are shooting. So I think that there is something more insightful and more sharp in what we do. And yesterday it was a new theory I had, maybe 1 month ago, just in a conversation like this one. But I think it is quite true that it's, these cameras are really there to shoot what actors try to hide. Usually an actor is there to show something to the camera or to give something, even if as a present or as it's part of the vanity or part of the tendency to go towards to the camera and give something. But there, no. Right. We don't give a shit about what he wants to give. And in fact, we are there to really, really look for what he wants to hide.
Yeah.
And it's very contemporary, this approach. It's very interesting.
Is that something you did right from the beginning? Did it develop, or were you already doing that with your first film, Honor de Cavalleria?
How to say? The system, yes. This idea, this is specifically a little bit more evil idea that going with what they want to hide, it was progressively, more intense. Mm-hmm. Because at the beginning I worked with non-professional actors, and they had some kind of innocent soul, and they don't understand mechanism of cinema, and they don't know the codes of representation, and they don't have the extreme vanity of actors. They don't know how to control their own image, so they have less skills. And at the beginning was just, to see the good things of these people in a more, not to miss anything. But still, I realized that the border between what they want to show, what they want to hide, still, even if because they are shy, probably because of other reasons of professional actors. But what they want to hide is also interesting, and for some reason they want to hide something. Oh, why not to go, for that? Yeah. So, but it was a natural. And then when I mix actors and everything, this became really an evidence. And now I am very radical on that, because it's boring. in general, I realize that what actors want to show is a cliché, usually, almost always. They do not have enough fantasy to create something really challenging.
Yeah.
Me neither, alone. It's the combination of all this non-communication that creates that everybody's a little bit in a challenging atmosphere where you don't know where this will go, what it's good, what it's bad, what it's true, what it's fake. So in that context, where I assume more or less the same challenge they assume, even if they, of course, they use their own image, and this is a little bit more, sensitive, a little bit more physical and more, okay, I use my prestige, or I use, my prestige of that the film will be good at the end. But okay, we share a little bit the challenge, and we share the risk, and in that context, it works.
Yeah, but you do get an incredible performance. In fact, he won the Best Actor in the César in Pacifiction from Benoît Magimel, who's obviously worked with a lot of filmmakers. He's got a lot of experience, and he seems to be doing something quite different here. But I believe you played some tricks with him, like some scenes you were feeding him his lines in an earpiece, and then you stopped and you left him kind of floundering to improvise.
Well, because the earpiece, earpiece, it's interesting only in one condition, ideal condition. That is that the actor doesn't know the script. Because if the actor knows the script and knows the character, what is the point of having an earpiece? I mean, it will not change essentially anything. Because he already can set up, previously some kind of structure of physical structure, mental structure, dramatic structure of how the scene will develop, because he knows the script. So, but if the actor doesn't know the script and is a good actor or a skillful actor, then a lot of things change, because he wants to show his best image, or he wants to show how skillful he is, or he wants to show, how talented he is, or whatever. And he's under pressure. But he doesn't know anything. So he goes to the set, goes there, and he doesn't know who is these other actors there, what are the characters they represent, what do they see, how long it will take the scene, if it will be 20 minutes or 40 minutes. He doesn't know anything. And then suddenly the sentence, because I only transmit dialogue, sentence of dialogue, never any kind of other information. And then with the sentence he's obliged to repeat, he has to understand, because it's already very difficult, because when you say something to reproduce the speed of real life, when you say something, the new sentence is already coming. So you have to be very concentrated, extremely concentrated. Then, okay, this, and the earpiece is here on the air, so it means that it's next to the brain. So a lot of concentration is around here, just to understand this. Then when he says the sentence, he has to understand what's going on with the plot in real time. Who is this guy? Who is the other guy? Who is, what are they talking about? What I have to answer? What's going on here? He has to, in real time, while he has also a lot of concentration or a lot of difficulties to really reproduce and, of course, act accordingly. Perform accordingly, make it coherent, make a unity, create a unity around the sentence he's discovering for the first time and trying to understand what's going on there and, okay, make it work. So it's very demanding at the level of concentration. It's very demanding, and it's here, and it means that everything else is out of his control.
You had
this is the point, because, the body, the reactions and everything, it's extremely organic, because he's not controlling. He has not enough energy, psychological or nervous system energy to control everything. And then, the body, the reactions and everything, it's extremely organic and spontaneous, but the sentence are extremely precise, because on the earpiece I can give whatever I want. Absurd sentence, not politically correct sentence.
You had a very different performance as Louis XIV from Jean-Pierre Léaud, which is a performance not about words, it's about gestures. And it's indeed, as you'll see, we'll show a clip in a bit, but it's about very few gestures. I mean, he's almost immobile for the whole film. How did you get that performance from him? What were you looking for? How did you talk to him about what this, human sort of immobile monument was going to be doing?
Basically, the main point was to make him believe, because he's a little bit crazy person. He doesn't follow, normal rules of acting or anything. I mean, I don't communicate with actors in any case, but okay. But there it was to make him believe that he was really sovereign as an actor on a stage, not as a character. The sovereignty of, that you are the boss. Well, because I was inspired by him, because the first day we decided, or he came to discuss about the film, he told me, I am the king of acting, and I will play the king of France. That's perfect combination. I am the king of acting in France, or the king of actors, or something. Yeah. So I said, well, yes. So he really believed on that. Okay. So just to, increase the sensation that he was really, and he was, if you deal with that a little bit in a, in an evil way again, he was believing he was God, in fact, on a stage, I mean on the set. And I don't know, he really, and what put a lot of problems on the film, because he was doing n'importe quoi, it doesn't matter, crazy things, and at the end he was so fond of himself that, and with this sovereign, extreme sovereign, gestures and attitude that, it was tolerated by me, he was sending everybody away. When he saw that an actor or the servant or another character or whoever was approaching to him, he said, no. He didn't want anybody to be on the frame. Mm-hmm. He was completely, in a crazy mood of divinization of himself.
Yeah. Can we just have a clip, because we've got a clip from Louis XIV. So I'd like to illustrate what we mean about it being gestural and him being so regal. Can we have the Louis XIV clip, please?
Sire, nous feriez-vous l'immense plaisir de venir avec nous?
S'il vous plaît, sire.
Non, je préfère me coucher.
Cela nous ferait tellement plaisir.
Mais à ceux qui veulent me voir, je fais une grande salutation. Moi.
Sire.
Apportez-moi le chapeau.
Très bien, sire.
Merci, bravo. Moi,
Sire.
enlevez le chapeau.
So I mentioned that you made films.
Here is interesting because he was very jealous of this actor, Blonde.
Really?
So he was treating in a very despotic way, because he was jealous as an actor, because he was a very good actor. So he was all the time with a little bit of violence, treating him as a jealous actor, between actors. So it matched very well with the idea of sovereignty and despotic, and facing death. So a lot of things.
Did you feel nervous acting with someone who is like a sort of, cinematic demigod?
I was a little bit more respectful with him, but not because he was famous or anything like this, but because he was older, an old person. So you will not push him in the same way that if it was somebody even more prestigious or whoever, but that is younger.
Right.
I don't know, I felt some kind of decorum of not going to the same kind of limits that we, on longer scenes or embarrassing moments or whatever. I was a little bit more, not pudorous, con pudor. Shy.
Yeah, cautious.
Cautious.
Respectful, yeah.
Not for any, just for human reasons,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So these figures like Don Quixote, the Three Kings, Louis XIV, Hitler, Goethe, etc. We all know, or we think we know who they are. They are like ready-mades. It's not like inventing new characters. Why have you liked to work with these myths?
Well, because to play a game, that it has to be, as I said before, quite respectful was the original source, so it means that you have something to say or you are interested in at some point, but at the same time has to be a little bit iconoclast, in the sense that if you deal with these characters or famous characters, you have to say something on your own. And most of them, except Hitler, of course, and Fassbinder, that are very, it was for the art wall. This work was for the Documenta in Kassel, and it's different. But for cinema, it's difficult to deal with a character where there are real images of the real character, of the real person. So most of them were, I don't know, the Three Wise Men, the Death of Louis XIV, Casanova, Don Quixote. We don't have images. Some of them are fictional characters. So it means that there is always something interesting to say or to give to the audience, because because I work in a very organic way somehow, in a very, the decors, the costumes, the way actors perform, it's extremely realistic. So to imagine that this is the real world with the fantasy, you can add some fantasy and you can add something that it's coming from you. And in fact, this idea of not being respectful, and it was a problem that we have constantly with Jean-Pierre Léaud here in the film, because, I don't know, will the King Louis XIV say this or not? When he will be alone with the servant, will he talk about sex? When, I don't know, he has to he will do it in front of people. When he has, these are extremely complex questions to answer, because, I don't know, maybe you can read a lot of books about that, but still, there are some moments of intimacy that I don't think there is any kind of traces in history or in writing, so it means that there is an open space to fill this with images, and it's justified, because there is no tracers, you don't have to follow up any kind of historical truth, and they're okay. You can create volume around that with simply actors that can be professional, not professional, can be whatever you decide, because it's justified. You have the right to do it. If there is, characters where we already have images, moving images, like Hitler or Fassbinder, you have to be more careful, because the risk of pastiche, you make a pastiche, it's very, you're close to it. So you have to be, it's more tricky and more precise, because it was the art wall and it was an experimental film and blah, blah, blah. But if it was a feature film, I will be much more careful, and I will probably never make a film about somebody where we have real images.
Right. What is the connection between your films and your gallery work? And how do you know whether an idea is for the big screen or for,
when they commission, if they commission something, but I do it for, whoever commissions. In fact, I don't have a lot of commissions, because in the art world, my works are long and difficult, and they work for museums. People go there to have a cocktail, or collectors, they wanted to, some very short things. So my things are long and difficult, and they don't like it very much. But for me, it's useful, because it's where I can start experimenting in a lot of formal research that I will apply in a different way, but I don't know. And it's a source of pleasure of shooting, because they don't care of what you give at the end. The people from the art wall, you can deliver, 3-minute film, 40-minute film, 100-hour film. They don't care. They like everything. So, no, they have this mental freedom, and it's good for them. Afterwards, they don't go and see it, but okay. this is not my problem, you know. They have a problem, you know, how do they deal with artwork? But I mean, and this is good because you have a lot of pleasure doing this kind of films because you can concentrate only on the pleasant films of shooting that are a lot with digital, and on the ludic side, playful side of shooting, things that were on the origin of my desire of making film, of being filmmaker, because it was possible with digital technology. But there, with the artwork commission, it's even more, I don't know, stronger, and this lightness of you know, doing things without depression and not even taking yourself seriously. That we are doing, as the art world accepts everything, you can be ironical, you can be whatever you want, nobody will complain. But you have to do it not in a speculative way. I mean, as I don't respect much, you know, the art world or the cinema either. I am focused on having the pleasure of doing it. And of course, at the end, I hope, or I smell during the shooting, apart from having the pleasure, that maybe something original will appear or something interesting, and it's because this attitude that these things can appear. Because if you are self-obsessed that the thing has to be understood or appreciated or, you know, or has to be coherent or whatever, then nothing new appears. I mean, it's very difficult. And as I shoot a lot, for me it's not a problem to make you know, a lot of hours that are not good or not interesting. For me it's normal, it's natural, it's like in life, or it's like a writer, you know, you don't have to show it, who cares?
Yeah. Can I ask you about Pacifiction, which feels, I mean, I said it's very much an Albert Serra film, but it feels completely different because your previous films have been slow-paced, that tend to be very dark in imagery. They're often quite claustrophobic. And here, you've almost made a Hollywood spectacle. It's fast. There are moments of real spectacle and incredible, vivid, you know, South Seas colour, touches of, you know, Gauguin skies, etc. Did you decide that you were going to make something completely different that didn't feel obviously like an Albert Serra?
Yes, it was a little bit the desire at the beginning, but keeping the integrity of what we do while we are already on set, shooting in a scene. The methodology when, you know, we are there with these characters decided on this and this one and doing this, it's the same procedure. But all the script, maybe the setup, the decors, the casting, the mix that was quite, you know, sophisticated, the mix of the characters of the actors chosen to do these characters on the casting, all these things, of course, where they had a little bit of more ambition. I don't know in which level. I would not say that it's more ambition of being you know, more successful, but ambition of making something different that could touch, you know, some key, you know, the keyboard, to touch some keys that you didn't touch before. And this was the challenge. But a challenge for myself, not even with any other interest. Just to, let's make it different. Just make for fun of doing it. It was not even the purpose of the producers. No, we have to be no, I said, do whatever you want. And it was me, as a formal challenge, to do it and to apply it in this, you know, in this frame of a more narrative film. But when you say slow, I never thought my films were slow. My films were filled with some anticlimax moments. That's true. I prefer that expression, because it's not that it's slow, it's that it's done in a way that it provokes some kind of sensation, of perception that this is slow. And it creates a physical reaction on you. And it's done on purpose, because I am doing the edit, I can cut here and there, and can do whatever I want. I have enough, as you said, 540 hours, I have enough shots of everything and long, and you know, to make it as short or as long as I want. So it's always, there is always maybe a deeper reason behind. Not just, you know, to being in an atmospheric or, I don't know, in a contemplative mood of being slow, everything at the same level. No, there are some moments where it's really slow because it's anticlimax. Because anticlimax is a concept that it's a mix of tempo, real tempo of the images, but dramatic tempo. And I think that it was more adjusted of what I was trying to do with some films. Of course, there is moments that there is a, in a row you have 2 or 3 more anticlimax moments, and it creates a sensation that it's extremely contemplative and extremely slow. But every scene, as my unit is the scene, every moment it's quite calculated. And this anticlimax moment, it exists still in Pacifiction.
Right.
Some of the dialogues, but now they are done with dialogues.
Yeah.
Some kind of dialogues that go on, and sometimes you do, well, what is going on this? And it's a physical, you start to, see differently, but there is a dialogue. Apparently there is action because there is dialogue, there is drama, and it feels that it's not so slow as it was before in other films. But the concept of anticlimax moment, but done with other tools, is still there.
Right. I hope you can stick around and see Pacifiction after this. You will definitely not find the film an anticlimax. We do have some time for questions now, and there should be a microphone going around. So would anyone like to start the bidding? Yes, please, down here. Hang on, the mic's coming to you.
I have an impression you are making very difficult film for challenging the audience. How do you propose your project to the producers?
Well, it's producers that share a little bit this vision, that they also, they want to be challenged themselves, and they want to challenge audience. But it's a great tradition, in art in general, when, I don't know, in the 19th century, Rimbaud or Mallarmé or all these poets appear, were the first poets that could really put away the audience, the public. They didn't want to communicate anything to anybody, they were just focused on... so this attitude, I think it's healthy from artistic point of view, and even, mental point of view. But it's also interesting because only with this attitude you can, take some risks. If you don't have this attitude, you will never take any risk, because you will always be scared. They will not understand it. They will not enjoy it. It's what happens in theater nowadays, that they need the applause of people every night. So it means that they are under quite, unhealthy pressure from my point of view, because you cannot challenge the audience and at the same time want the applause. They cannot, if it's something really interesting, they will not understand it immediately. Maybe they will need some other, theater piece of the same act, of the same author, or maybe they will need to see it twice, or maybe, they will not. It's very difficult that you give something and they understand that it's challenging, and everybody understands it immediately, and they applaud you, and you are the hero. You cannot be hero and and a rebellious guy at the same time. I mean, or you cannot be rich and subversive. I mean, so of course on the long term, you can go and little by little sophisticate the things, and you can introduce these changes in a more calculated, or with the right dose. And maybe you can be wrong sometimes. You put too much dose of something and you say, well, it's like a provocation, or you are too radical, or whatever. Okay, it could happen also. But at the same time, you don't have to close the door to go beyond just because people will have some difficulties. Okay. And who is people? I mean,
yeah,
it worked quite well for me.
Okay, there's
who is these people who doesn't understand the thing, or who doesn't enjoy? Who cares about these people? It go very well for me.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you so much. I used to work at Artificial Eye as the marketing manager many years ago under the legendary Andy Engel and Pam Engel, and they would just buy films at Cannes because they loved them, and it was their passion, and they didn't care if anybody went to see them. That was 30 years ago, and things have changed so much. I mean, the art and commerce part is so challenging because it's just so hard when everybody is just doing the accounting, and it's not just I'm passionate about this film and I don't care if anybody comes to see it. It's hard to get screens now as well. They had their own circuit back then.
Yes, of course it is change, and in some countries it changed more than in others. probably here or Anglo-Saxon countries where there is, more difficult public funding, this is more, the change is more radical. But in other countries, it's, of course, it's changing, but maybe not so much. And at the end, who cares? I mean, what it counts is the people that didn't change, that there are less than before, but, it's the same, as I said, because of the audience. Who cares about the people who change? I don't know. You cannot be a dictatorship and, oblige people to follow the same things they were following 20 years ago. If they want to be more stupid now than before, I mean, how can I prevent it? I should put it on a school again, or I don't know. But, of course, it's a wall. I think digital technology, for some things, play a good role for the making of films, in the technological side, but also played a bad role for other things, that is killing a little bit the concentration of people with internet and all these tools and mobile phones and all these things, although they are a little bit more lazy than before to go and to see a real difficult experience on cinema, on theater, on everything, on literature. But, okay, I cannot change that either. Maybe me, myself also, I can be a victim of that, but I am aware and I try to... But I will not change it for these people, that's for sure. Maybe.
But in France, you do have a high-profile movie. It was in the Césars. Your DOP, Arthur Todt, won an award. Benoît Magimel won an award. It wasn't kind of hidden away like a tiny art movie.
It's difficult,
visible.
It's very difficult to explain. I cannot explain how it works. I think there is a rule that Proust explains in his main book, The Search of Lost Time, no? It's an English title, that he says that the more you want something, the less you get it, because it's a rule for love. Mm-hmm. He used it, but he used this rule for love as a general rule for desire in life. So the more you desire something, the less you get it. You stop desiring it, because this is obvious. When you like somebody, and you pay a lot of attention, and you give a lot of attention, this person, is not very interesting. Then you disappear, and suddenly, the interest of this person, goes a little bit higher, goes up. That is a rule. It's a psychological rule of human beings. So, Proust says that it works for all kinds of desire, not only love. And I think that I never pretended, I never wanted to be successful, I didn't care. And specifically with my films, and the films, not only me, but other filmmakers, you are so obsessed with, because making the film, and especially the edit process, is such a difficult, and you have to solve so many problems that the last thing you think is that if people will understand this or will be successful or not. Because it's really an intellectual puzzle, where a lot of things are there, and you have to really be concentrated, and it's still very difficult to make it work in itself. So yeah, make it work for the other people or for the sensibility of the audience. If you start to think about it, then you will never solve the equation, because it's already very difficult. No, you cannot put this inside the equation. Yep. It will be too difficult. So this attitude, and always doing things on the very last moment, this is very important too. Because if you want to go to Cannes, what you will do? Or you want to go to be a big festival? You will prepare the film, and you will be ready on February, in case of Cannes, or, you will have the film. We never, we always submit the film everywhere in the last day or 2 days before, because it was too chaotic. So, and because, there was people there pushing and pushing. So, I don't know, if you don't think about it, as Proust said, I wanted to be rich always. And I never had any money, So it's the rule of Proust. Yep. I want it all the time. And to have the freedom. And there is no richness, no money, no freedom on this level.
Okay. We've got time for some more questions. You see, if you hadn't put your hand up, you would have got to ask the question quicker, because you would have shown you didn't really want to ask the question. Could you...
Thank you.
You've got the mic there now. Go ahead.
Thank you for inspiring me today, but I want to ask, who is your inspiration?
Other artists. And I was saying that in an interview before. Other famous artists of the past, of course, all the avant-garde people from the, from the 20th century, the beginning, this attitude, or the 60s, all these kind of people. But also, you know, like a failed artist, I was born in a town, or it was 15,000 people. And I knew when I was younger, some artists, already older, like 55, 60 years old, that were like provincial failed artists, that were really, you know, really contemporary, really focused on what they bought, were like second division artists, failed, you know, somehow. But they consider art and they take art as seriously if they were in the first division. And they knew they were failed. And they were provincial somehow. So these people, I knew two of them especially, and inspired me a lot because the commitment was the same than the other. But I understood that there was something wrong there at the level, not level only of success or public success or recognition, but at the level that their work, for me, was not so, you know, was not perfect, was not so, there was something wrong there. And it doesn't mean that it has to always to be this way, because there are provincial artists that were unknown, and not because they were doing bad work, but simply, I don't know, it didn't happen like this. No, and then afterwards, when they were dead, they were discovered. But was not the case of these people. So there, this idea of this extreme commitment, but at the same time, you know, to be a little bit pragmatical on the formal decisions of your work. Not, of course, a little bit pragmatical on taking care of, you know, people around, but mostly on, you know, your decisions of what you decide to do with your own work. I will do this film or this other film. This guy is proposing me this or that, what I decide. You know, Warren Buffett always says, the key of life, and he's a successful investor, is, you know, the key is how to say no. You know, to know when, to know, to say no. Do you want to do this? No. Do you want to invest in this? No. Do you want to? No, no, no. I don't want. Because, you know, the world is full of temptations, and nowadays that people is very disoriented. There is, you know, people that get closer to each other just because of interest and superficial even interest. So, you know, I think that they did something wrong, these people, and at that time where this was not so important, and these provincial, but they had commitment, you know. They would have sacrificed everything, even the wife, and already having a family was a bad decision. I understood from them, you know, because, okay, you have to pay, there is people pushing you all the time. So if you have art here and family here, and to show the family that art is more important than them, it's not very pleasant either. And it's not very honest, by the way. So, you know, I learned about these people a lot, and I respect them a lot, and somehow I was sad for them, but I said, no, you don't have to repeat what they did.
We're going to end with a clip from Pacifiction, which you will see is something quite different. So final question, how did you come to make a film which is almost a spy thriller?
I don't know, for the pleasure of doing it. I wanted to make something light. There is a word in French that is romanesque. Some kind of lightness, you know, like an Ophuls film, like Madame D, or that there is a little trick and then it goes on, but it's tragic, but without being tragic, you know. There is some lightness on the tragedy, like the last Visconti film, Innocente, you know, or Madame D, but in a contemporary context, of course, with all the 70s film in mind, you know, all these, especially Hollywood films, and, but at the same time with my style and my way of working with actors. This is very important for me. And I, for example, all the indigenous people, I choose it there 10 days or 7 days before the start of the shooting, you know, and I pick up this, and I mix it in a very, very spontaneous way. So, I mean, some things were my will of doing something, I don't know, ambitious, but with always this touch of lightness and tragedy and lightness and, you know, menace, but that are not so, and, you know, irony, humor also, because there is a lot of humor in the film, and if you take it, you know, if you pay attention, Well,
Yeah.
there are things that for me, it's almost, if you go really in deep of what they say in some sentence of some little details, it's almost a provocation. I mean, it's on the edge of a lot of things. But it's very light also, and it's very sweet, and it's tender somehow. So it was a mix of having the pleasure and introducing new elements.
Yeah. Well, we will leave you in a moment with a taster of Pacifiction. I'd like to thank the Institut Français de Ciné Lumière for having us here tonight. The ICA, who are also jointly doing this program of Albert's work. New Wave Films for Pacifiction and for providing some clips tonight. I'd like to thank Daniel Turner also for compiling them. Albert, it's been a pleasure talking. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We'll leave you with some Hawaiian sunshine. Tahitian rather.
Bonjour. Bonjour, bonjour. Bonjour. Ah, c'est super.
Un peu de coquillage par-dessus.
C'est très beau, c'est nacré, c'est très beau.
L'essayer peut-être. Dresser avec
Une autre?
Tu peux essayer, juste pour essayer. Hein.
Allez, vas-y.
Moi, tu vois, toi,
Tu vois, comme ça?
tu connais le mana?
Oui, oui.
Voilà, bah, dessus, il y a le mana. Hein.
Oh, ouais. Ah, super. Oh là, non, non, ça, je pourrais pas. Ça, c'est super.
Tu veux essayer le collier, non?
Non, merci, c'est très beau. C'est très, très beau. Ah ouais, ah ouais, ouais.
Futur danseur d'Ori Tahiti, peut-être.
Ouais, peut-être. Ah, c'est très beau, c'est très bien fait. C'est très bien fait, hein.
Ouais.
Très beau. Tu veux voir sur toi comment c'est?
Je vais montrer ça.
Magnifique. Ah ouais. Ouais, ça te va mieux à toi. Hein.
Ça me va mieux à moi?
Ouais, ouais.
Mais à toi aussi.
Il faut que je me mette en condition là parce que. Oh, je vous
Tu viens avec nous, je suis en condition. T'inquiète pas.
Bon, je ne vais pas vous déranger.
Le costume là, hein?
Ah ouais, 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 c'est très beau, c'est très beau. Bon, je vous embête pas plus. Hein.
C'est pour changer lui.
Merci. Ah,
Bonjour.
ça va?
Est-ce que vous aimez les costumes?
Ah, c'est gentil, mais je peux pas, il faut que je travaille un petit peu. J'aime bien venir ici, j'aime bien l'ambiance qu'il y a.
La journée te fait vivre le costume du corps.
Ouais.
Sinon, j'ai quelque chose
Nous sommes en train de faire une répétition de...
Je vais regarder de loin, je ne veux pas vous embêter, vraiment. Hein. C'est vraiment charmant. Merci à tout à l'heure.
Merci, au plaisir.